military has given me this mission to, defend this scumbag. But no, you volunteered, dude. You want to do this. You're here for a reason. Because I had an encounter with a defense lawyer who said that he was given this mission and he's going to do it the best of his ability. He was a volunteer. No one just gets grabbed out of the JAG Corps and thrown into this. These are all volunteers looking to make their bones. As a matter of fact, when I was down there was an Army major lawyer who his time was up. He was getting out of the Army, and he switched right over. He went from being a uniformed member of the U.S. military to being a civilian employee defending Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. I can't believe they let him do that.
Wow.
I mean,
seems like a conflict of interest potentially there.
Yeah. Don't you think?
I do.
but that's kind of common practice in a lot of places. When somebody retires, they come back. But anyway, back to the proceedings. You asked me a question, and we went on a tangent. But,
well, it's interesting because we don't get to see that up close, and you've got to witness it. How many times have you done this now?
I've been there twice.
Okay.
Once in when Obama was inaugurated back in January of 2008.
Lovely.
And then 2009 rather, and then again in 2014.
So how does that work? Every time there's a proceeding going to happen, do they contact you via email and go, do you want to, get in the, your hat thrown in the ring?
The lottery. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's a lottery. I mean, there were thousands of victim family members, and you have to enter the lottery because not everybody wants to go down there.
Yeah, no.
So the Office of Military Commissions, they have an office there for the victim assistance, whatever the heck it's called. They'll contact you and say, hey, hearing coming up, would you like to go? We can enter your name. Yes, okay, put me in there. And then they pull your name. Now, there's people who have had their names pulled, and they were going to go down and see a trial and canceled at the last minute. So they actually have a secondary pool of people who can leave at a minute's notice. Yeah,
so how many families are there always? Like 10 families, How many always seem to attend?
Yeah, when I was down there, I want to say you're probably about right. There were probably about 8 or 10 family members along with us. It's usually a pretty small group. But, not nearly enough when you think about 3,000 people who were massacred, there, and all of their family members. Just a couple quick fun facts. Well, not fun, but sad statistics. 2,000 children lost a parent on 9/11. Right. I mean, when you think about that, they're all adults now. Blows your mind.
Yeah. Incredible.
So the whole thing is shocking and sad. What I saw there was pretty much a place where the prisoners just toy with the authorities. I mean, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was reading a newspaper when I came into the courtroom, and he was waving it in the air, yelling about something he had read in the Washington Post or whatever. They don't recognize the legitimacy of the court. So when the judge walks into the room and everybody rises, they don't. They just sit there and they talk among themselves and, But
what I learned about him was he was actually got an engineering degree from North Carolina. And the reason, supposedly, why he hates America is our policies towards Israel. That's been his driving passion, that he's always wanted to take out Americans because of that. So he's just such a loser. What are your thoughts about the waterboarding that they did on him?
Well, from what I understand, and I don't know what the ground truth is on all that, but I do know none of that waterboarding took place at Guantanamo Bay.
Right.
It happened at other places.
Yes,
so a lot of people want to equate Guantanamo Bay with quote-unquote torture, but if you look at the number of times that people have been waterboarded, more journalists have been waterboarded in demonstrations than terrorists have been in actual interrogations. Part of SERE training that our pilots go through, survival, evasion, and
Yes.
resistance, and whatever. That's some of them go through waterboarding, and most of the pilots on 9/11 were military veterans. So more of the 9/11 pilots, civilian pilots who were killed on 9/11, have been through waterboarding than terrorists have.
Right.
I mean, so let's put things in perspective. Also, back to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, yeah, he had been waterboarding. And what I think about it, I think in a time of war, particularly given this time, when we were so unsure, there were so many unknowns, it was something we had to do for national survival. And, oh, by the way, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed sung like a canary and gave up a lot of information that actually stopped other attacks. And that's what the press won't tell you.
Right. Well, they're not
So,
on our
in that
side.
case-
Well, just to
No,
tell
no.
our listeners a little bit about KSM, as he's also goes by, he was behind the shoe bombing incident that the shoe bomber that didn't go off on the airplane. He was behind the Bali nightclub incident. He was part of the 1993 World Trade Center where a bomb actually went off there. And then he also, it's been verified that he was the one that murdered the Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel
Pearl.
Pearl. So I have no sympathy for this man. He's been bad for a long time.
Oh, he's evil. I mean, he is a bloodthirsty barbarian that just needs to, leave this earth. And
so,
yeah,
what do you want to come out of once they finally can go to a trial? What, as a family member, what do you want the outcome to be? That they're locked in prison, the key's lost forever?
I want to see a Nuremberg type ending to all of this. I want to see an ending much like we saw Saddam Hussein. I mean, had the trial and the guy was executed. I like them to be hung, and and if there are some mitigating circumstance where they can't get a death penalty for these guys, which is going to just reap universal condemnation on the United States.
Right.
Then let them spend the rest of their lives at Guantanamo and let them fester there. However, I think the conditions there are much better than they deserve. They live much better than American prisoners do in federal prisons. I mean, they've had international inspections out the wazoo down there, and almost to a person, they say that the conditions are excellent down there for them. So they're living well. To the point where, Veronica, the very first time I went down there in 2009, in January of 2009, the pretrial hearing, they got into a big argument as to whether or not Khalid Sheikh Mohammed had been provided a pillow that he was promised. He said that the van ride from the detention center to the courthouse had been too rough on his terrorist tush.
So we need a
they
pillow?
went into a pillow. So here we are arguing about whether or not this guy received a pillow. My sister Lorraine actually walked out of the courtroom, and she was crying. And I went after her. I said, what's wrong? And she's like, 2,000 people are dead. Thousands of people are dead, and they're arguing about a pillow for this guy. So this is what it's degenerated to, This is
Well,
lawfare.
I think I actually read a quote by your sister, and she said that it was like emotional waterboarding on the families, what you all are continually going through.
Yeah, 9/11 families have been emotionally waterboarded for years now, and there seems to be a hell of a lot more sympathy for killers than there are for regular Americans. And, not to get too political with you, but, President Trump is a direct reaction to this type of stuff. This is why we have a President Trump now, because regular Americans like myself, regular Americans like my brother, who, he had no agenda. He was just a guy going to work, pursuing the American dream. We're forgotten about a lot of times because we let the lefties run things. And I can and there's a lot of reasons for that, and we could probably get into a whole other interview on that.
What do you miss most about your brother?
Oh my Lord, he was a really good. I spoke to him almost every day, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And I have three
That's
brothers.
a great relationship.
Not supposed to have your favorites, but he was always by the phone, and I was always by the phone because we both worked in offices.
Right.
So we got to talk a lot on someone else's dime. We sent emails back and forth, joke of the day. We would talk almost every day. And I miss those daily conversations with him. I miss his great sense of humor. He was a hysterical guy. I mean, he had a really great, well-developed sense of humor. And he was a very accomplished singer, too. He had a beautiful voice.
Well, I read that he was like Frank Sinatra. And then every picture I saw of your brother, his smile was just amazing. You could tell.
He was an amazing guy.
Yeah.
Ironically, we had been in Florida since 1997, and my brother had never come to visit or see the new house that we had, and he had bought tickets, and he was supposed to come up here in September of 2001. And
wow.
It was just like a week before, or a week after 9/11. He and his wife were going to fly down to visit us.
Wow.
So he never made it.
So
Obviously.
these terrorists took that away from you. Can you ever forgive, or does faith play a role in it? They'll get there someday. How does all of that work in your life when you've dealt with something like this?
Yeah, I'm angry at a lot of people, and I've got a lot of internal anger over this thing. But wartime, and as a Christian, you're supposed to be forgiving. But I got to tell you, in wartime, all bets are off. And I think I'm going to say something politically incorrect, but American lives are worth a hell of a lot more than terrorist lives. And that's my position in this thing.
It's true.
So, I'm sorry that some people are offended by the way we're pursuing justice in a military court, but too damn bad. This is a war. And even though people don't want to recognize we're at war, the enemy has a vote. The enemy has a vote as to whether or not we're in war or not. So what I would like to see, Veronica, is that instead of these attorneys flying back and forth from Washington, D.C., from Andrews to Guantanamo Bay for fits and starts of pretrial motions, I would like the president to say, guess what? Everybody's living at Guantanamo Bay until this is done. You guys aren't going back for anything.
Well, I read a fact that every year we spend, and correct me if I'm wrong, about $450 million to run Gitmo, and I think there's only 41 prisoners down there now because Obama released most of them.
That was by design, and quite frankly, President Bush had released some as well, not released to be free, but transferred them to other countries for detainment, because hey, it's a pain in the neck running this place. But
Right.
that was by design. If they reduce the numbers, the per capita cost goes up, and it makes it less politically supportable. You say, we're spending X thousands every year on each detainee. Well, that's what he wanted. But when you trade 5 Taliban commanders for the traitorous Bo Bergdahl,
I was going to ask you about him.
We've jumped the shark. We've totally
one.
jumped the shark on this thing.
So that makes you angry.
I
I was angry when that happened, and I can't even imagine how you felt.
I was livid because these guys are going to go on to kill again.
Right.
And they know it. And I don't care what third country is keeping tabs on them. That part of the world, they just, it's tough for them to live up to their obligations. Let's put it that way. So whatever country they're in, Qatar or whoever is supposed to be watching these guys, they're not keeping that close eye on them. As a matter of fact, they're welcomed back as returning heroes. Many of Guantanamo detainees are now called Gitmo graduates because they get out and they return to the battlefield. And they're held in very high esteem if they're released from Gitmo. They're brought back. And
they're like superheroes.
They are. Hey, they've been to the belly of the beast. Now they're out, and now they're kind of a big deal in terrorist circles. I think we need to close that revolving door. I think we need to close it for good, and we need to do it with executions. If you take up arms against the United States in an illegal fashion in violation of the laws of war, I think that you should be held to those laws of war, just as we did in Nuremberg.
So, what do you think